Illich is working is a Catholic missionary, basically working in Latin America, and he's journeying with people who've had really broken experiences of school, and he is saying that this problem is the system, not the people. He's also, that's why he got the role of faith, he's deeply Catholic as well, and he's hanging around with guys like Paulo Freire. They've got this little club going. The thing that I find impressive about Illich is he has managed to get some pretty high degrees, and he's published a lot of books, one of them being Deschooling Society, so how do we get schools out of society altogether. He's done all of this writing, and he's the only person that I know of that can write an entire book, get it published, get it considered to be theory and factual theory, and not have one single APA reference in it.
Wow. Is that all his own?
It's all his own. It's all his own ideas, although he will say it's not his own ideas. He will say he has brought his discussions with others to the fore. So I could actually see him saying, I do not want to actually be the author, but someone has to put their name to the word. He wants to see the person, and what I'm going to say to understand this is he wants to see, because they're a very complex word, iconoclast, polymorph, and hypophonic theology. He wants to summarise that, he's wanting to say every person has a purpose. Every person has meaning. And the education is about enabling the purpose of that person to come to the fullness. And so education needs to be about the student or the individual, not about the curriculum or the teacher or the system. So bring out, this is like Youth Development Practice 101, strengths-based. What are their strengths? Bring them out, enable those strengths. Actually see those strengths as part of the purpose. And he wrote this lovely book called Deschooling Society, which you can actually get free off the net now. And it's complex. You see how you've seen some of how he writes. You know, since when have we confused process with substance? I think it is, or substance. Process of substance. The actual journey of learning with the content that you learn. He would say we've actually confused the two now. We should be all on a journey continuously. It shouldn't be about measuring how much we've learned at any single point in time. What a contradiction to be in a BYD where you have to get A, B's and C's. You know, that's what we do with assessment, is we are actually marking the substance, not the process. So we're not actually marking the learning. He would say that there's a problem with that. He actually even goes to the point of saying school dumbs people down. School dumbs people down. And you can see this often, you know, with some of our as students journey from primary school to high school. Primary schools in New Zealand are really amazing environments. You'll see a lot of kids really flourish at primary school, but once they get into intermediate high school, that's when it actually starts to knock them a six. So in primary school, most primary school teachers are trained to work with strengths. So if they see that young so-and-so likes to do such and such, they will build a whole curriculum for that person around that. So it's building. Well, Reefton School is a good example. So Reefton School down the West Coast is in the middle of deer hunting country for West Coasters. If you go into the Reefton School library, they have got every deer hunting magazine that comes out in New Zealand. There are like 8-year-olds looking at pictures of guns. Now the cities were like, what? But and this is their family. So the primary school is so connected to their family that actually Dad can go in and he's wearing his hunting clothes, and he can sit in the library and feel like he's part of that library. But then once you get into high school with NCEA, even though at Reefton the school's so small, it's an area school, so it's from year 0, early new entrance, right through to year 13. Once you get to the high school, you have to do the standard NCEA curriculum. I don't think there's a unit standard about hunting. So suddenly the kid feels like they can't actually grow and excel. It just dumbs you down. Now, I actually helped students do homework at times and then looked on the and I've done amazing, say, history work, and I've looked on the exemplars on the internet for what is required, and I'm like, it's so, it's so, yeah. I've worked with art teachers who've said, we're told to enable creativity, but then the kids have to follow an exemplar so they can't grow. So that's what he means by dumbing people down. He says part of the reason that this happens is that everyone comes to school with hope. And he would actually go to the point of saying we're all born with hope. And with hope comes expectation that that hope is fulfilled. And what happens in the process of schooling is gradually that hope is diminished for some young people. You know, and like most of you know about the kids that we work with that can't read at all. They've gone to school hoping to read. They've now been at school 7 years, still not reading at all. Imagine what's happening to their hope with the expectation right at the beginning was they're going to be able to read at some point in time. And he's really quite, this to him, the driving force of education is the realisation of hope. If we can actually go, now what is your dream? What are the steps do we put into place to achieve your dream? Part of the reason why all of this rubbish is happening is that he says that in society we have a particular type of knowledge that we think has to be taught. And we restrict our schooling to that knowledge, the knowledge that we need for our society to function. And he wants an alternative. He says, let's shut down all the schools. It's just basically what he says in the book, shut down every single school. Instead, in their place, build little community style schools that are based on strengths, really, and give every family, he's talking at this point in the United States, give every family vouchers. This gets very controversial. What the family can do with their vouchers is that they can send their kid to any school in America or any school in New Zealand that's about the strengths of their child. So if their child and their hope and their expectation is that one day they're going to be an All Black, they will go to the school for All Blacks. If they want to be a ballet dancer, they'll go to the school for ballet dancers. There's a lot of criticism around that, his alternative, but there is that idea of building strengths there. So, his book basically argues this, and have I given you these yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did I put them all down? He wants less schools. He wants the alternatives to be endless. He wants learning, which is like unit standards. It's not based on the qualification that you've got, but the skills that you can show. Competence, that's what he means by competence. He wants technology to be publicly controlled. Now what he means by that, is really simple in this day and age, he was writing in the 70s, is that if a society is saying to itself it needs to be high-speed broadband and everyone needs to have access, then that needs to be controlled by society, not by corporations. And that way everyone has access to that technology. And I would say that's a really good point now, and actually it might be something I would take up further in research, because we tell our kids now you have to learn to read. I actually go, no, kids don't need to learn to read now. Kids need to actually learn to read technology as well. If you can't use a computer when you leave school, and we still have kids that can't use a computer when they leave school, the job options for you are so limited. And just because you can use a smartphone doesn't mean you're technology literate. Now, and this will show you if you're technology literate. How easy, don't answer this, how easy is it for you to use Moodle? When you first started, if it was really, really easy, then you would have technology literacy. If it was difficult, but you managed to work your way around it, then you've got competence. And you can become literate. And not that you can't ever not, but if you're still struggling with it now, then that actually shows, well, actually you're not fully literate in this. This is an area you could build on. So he's about the social goods, and he says that the real way education happens is in a trust community, where you trust me and I trust you, and we learn together. He argues that at the end of the day, schools weaken people's sense of place, self and other people. When you go to school, particularly in New Zealand at NCEA, take Reefton for example, primary school, yes, your sense of place, your sense of Reefton is really in that school. But by the time you get to secondary school, it's disconnected. Even your sense of who you are becomes a little bit disconnected, and your sense of how you relate to other people can become disconnected in the whole school process. Get rid of compulsory schooling, make it optional. That's what he says. Make schools an option, but not the answer. Now that will never happen in New Zealand, no matter what we do. Okay, so he's one of these alternative people, just checking what the time is, because the other ones become a lot easier, because they've got names that you can even sort of just pronounce quite easily. John Holt is a teacher from the United States. But he goes like the same as Illich. He says that, hey, schools are just a myth. They're a hegemony. We've bought into this idea that we must have schools. We build a town. We think the town needs to have two things at least to be a town: a school and a hospital. A church, perhaps, yeah. So we have these myths of what it means to be a town.
Yeah.
And instead of doing what Illich did, which is deschooling, he starts what's called the unschooling movement. And that is when you start, and this is part of the half alternative education as well, when you start to actually work with kids and work with families to actually go, how does school brainwash you? How does school brainwash you? Then what are your strengths? And we'll build on your strengths. Here is a couple quotes from him. It's not that I feel school is a good thing gone wrong, but a wrong idea from the word go. So from the word go, schools were a wrong idea. It's a nutty notion that we can have a place where nothing but learning happens, cut off from the rest of life.
Because they don't really learn life skills at school.
No, and as I've already said to you, actually, you come here, you probably get exhausted by the end of the day, and the best learning will happen in your sleep. If you've been able to digest what you've had today, you will learn in your sleep. But you're also, like for me last night, I learned watching DVDs about the Pacific War. Because we're doing NCA on Pacific War at the moment, so I'm learning as well. And here's another one. Learning is like breathing. Learning is like breathing. It's a natural human activity. It's part of being alive. A person who is active, curious, who explores the world using all of his/her senses, who meets life with energy and enthusiasm. T, this is your son. Enthusiastic, jumping round. You find that I'm just picking on you now. Often we talk about ADHD and all that stuff. Well, actually, maybe that's because he's a learner on hyperdrive.
Yeah.
Not a broken kid, but a learner on hyperdrive, who meets life with energy and expectation. All babies do this. Is learning. Ours. Picking on you now. Our ability to learn, like our ability to breathe, does not need to be improved or tampered with.
True. Just let to grow. Left to grow.
I'll just play you a little bit of this video. This is the unschooling movement in New Zealand. And I'll tell you the issue with the unschooling movement is at the moment it is only owned by whiteys.
Wow.
So you don't actually see this happening within Māori and Pacifica communities, where actually it could end up unschooling society.